You listening?
Welcome, folks, to the Craic'n Coachin podcast. This is our third fucking take of this, but you're here today with your hosts, Donal and Emmett. We're clearly having some connection issues. Today's topic, we're going to delve into 10 common misconceptions about getting lean, and I think it's quite topical at the minute, isn't it, with everyone trying to get shredded for summer, bruh. Emmett, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, mate. This topic, of course, is topical for you at the moment in Ireland coming into summer, but for me in Australia, it's actually our winter. So we're all on our winter arc over here. But I'm happy to dive into this topic, mate, because it's a juicy one.
The topic alone is just going to make you feel warmer, is it?
Yeah. I mean, next week maybe we can do one on the gaining phase.
Yeah, the winter bulk. But how has your week been, mate? I feel like we haven't really had much one-to-one time recently with our recent guests the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, back-to-back guests. But the crux of the podcast, mate, is me and you. We will have the occasional guest, but it won't be a weekly thing. It's mostly you're going to have to get used to us two chatting amongst each other, talking a bit of shit.
We're the main characters, folks.
Exactly. We're not NPCs in our own podcast, so the guests, when we get a good one, will be on. But for now, you may get used to me and Donal. Everyone's already switched off, mate. Everyone's turned it off.
Like just an episode with M2 dicks again. You have to remember, like, you know, we didn't go out of our way to message Alex Gates and James Mack. They asked us could they come on, and we said, you know what, if you're begging, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we were happy to have them.
But Emmett, how has your last fucking week been, mate? Give me a bit of insight here. I wanna know.
A good week. Been a busy week. Being a PE teacher, being an online coach, training, trying to be a bodybuilder. Had a really good week of training, to be fair. Like, probably my best week of training yet, but every week is becoming, it's getting that stage where every week training's just getting better and better. And I'm feeling good going into the gym. Strength's good, energy's good, performance is high, motivation to train is high. All the opposite things of what it requires, I suppose, in getting lean for summer, today's topic. But been a good week, mate. I can't complain. And what about yourself? It's been a busy week for yourself as well. A few people competing. You have a fight coming up.
Yeah. Before we jump into me, what were the catalysts? What made you feel like it was a good week of training? I always be interested in this, you know, because I come out of those weeks sometimes being like, that was a great week, but, you know, like, was there a certain lift that just sparked it all? That went, fuck yeah, this is the week.
Honestly, like, every session, I would usually be probably critical, you know, even if like the one main lift doesn't go how I would like, and it was a great session overall, I'd be like, that wasn't a good session. But just everything felt good. I made good progress across the board. All the main lifts across each session moved the way I wanted them to move. I made a decent bit of progress and strides forward with regards to a wee bit more weight on certain exercises, and it moved well in terms of execution, and everything just felt good. You know when you're going in and you're feeling good, you're focused on your sessions. That was just one of those weeks. So when you get those weeks, you have to take them.
Big time. I love them weeks. I feel like I had one of them weeks myself, but I just haven't reflected on it well enough yet, because it's just been, like you said, a wee bit busy.
Do you know what? It made me reflect on, like, of course, when you're in the dieting phase, the dopamine hits come from the visuals, the physique improving, week to week, sometimes on a daily basis. You're seeing new lines, you're seeing changes on the scale. Yeah, the scale's dropping consistently. In a gaining phase, though, you're not getting that. And you're almost seeing the physique, in a way, you may look at it as deteriorating, getting softer, you're gaining a bit of body fat, but the dopamine and the good stuff from the gaining phase is in your training performance. that is where you can really maximize the ability to get strong in the gym. Your recovery capacity is higher, you have more food going in, your energy's always high. There's no excuse to miss with training. Whereas in a diet phase, you can almost go through the motions and accept that there comes a point where you accept you're not going to be getting stronger. You're there to maintain what you have. Whereas in a gain phase, I suppose the stakes and the pressure's a bit higher because you know you have to go in and perform. But like I'm relishing that at the moment.
It also sets the standard for getting into that, like that cut or that deficit, because it is going to be, you know, what your bottom line is comparatively. Like if you're pushing up to some heavy, really, or very challenging weights, and you know you've definitely built that good bit of muscle, like you're gonna have to hold that there. I think that's also a massive one that gets to me, and it is a nice challenge to be like, holy fuck, like I am at my strongest ever, at my peak. Can I hold this? How long can I hold this for?
Yeah, that's true. That's the game.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's the game. So it's on each end. There's a level of like pressure that comes with it. But now I'm just enjoying being on this side and being. I think it's important to stay focused and stay present on the phase that you're in. Like we're on opposite phase at the moment. For me, it's staying focused and being present in the gaining phase, not wishing that I was in a diet phase or getting excited for when I'm lean. Just being present on the advantages that come from being in the gaining phase, and then with yourself would be the same in the diet phase. Like you are getting there are levels of advantages where you're getting leaner, you're seeing the physique improve. You're preparing though for something different rather than just purely physique development as well. You can maybe speak a bit on that.
Yeah, definitely. But to jump into the actual question at hand, my week was good. I had a nice week concert there during the week. I had 2 clients fighting. They didn't get the wins due to different reasons, but we'll just take out their data, go back to the drawing board, and we'll do it better next time. You know, there's so many pillars being balanced there for them, plates being spun there for them, and you know, I'm only a small percentage as an S&C coach, so I am going to do my job to the best of my ability. And I think the best thing as well is being able to collaborate with the likes of Liam, who is their Muay Thai coach, and actually have those like nitty gritty conversations of being like, okay, like were me and him maybe clashing, or are we maybe pushing each other's buttons where it maybe isn't benefiting the athlete, which again I'm so grateful for at this time, at a point in time in my career as a coach, because it is nice to have that feedback. And I plan on having many more of those conversations as well to make sure that everyone is getting the most out of what they're doing. And then coming into this week, I probably have a stupidly busy social week, which I'm a wee bit nervous for, to be honest. I'm not a very highly social person, and I know it usually drains me, but I'm looking forward to it in the sense that it's a couple of things I've been looking forward to for a wee while. Like in terms of events, I just didn't realise until last week they were all this week.
What are they?
I've got a band called Knocked Loose. So these are the guys that like a wee bit heavier music, you'll know. Got that tomorrow night, and then on Wednesday night I secured some tickets to Zach Bryan.
Nice.
So looking forward to him too. And then me and Rihanna are going to see a gig. Well, not really a gig, more of like it's like a podcasty comedy setting. It's called Shits and Gigs. 2 guys from England. You ever seen them?
Nah, I don't believe I have. No.
I think they were the guys that pushed the whole like, am I the asshole? Like, have you seen those clips? Being like, I'm the asshole for cheating on my girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? They give their like sort of opinion on it.
I'm just looking them up now. It's a hit internet sensation podcast. So I'm just out of the loop, mate.
Well, you know, like this is what I expect me and you to be in the next year.
On the Shits and Gigs
Live
trajectory.
Live podcasts in the 3 Arena.
100%, mate. Aim high. Shoot for stars.
But yes, that's my previous week, and this is what I'm coming into this week. I'm excited for it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's all kind of based around concerts, isn't it? Like a lot of it's music based. For you, you're obviously into your music.
Definitely not something I share too much, to be honest, because like my music taste is very varied. It's just across the board. Like
Is it a
that
bit
country
heavy?
the other week
I
was
get the
a bit.
sense it's a bit heavy. Is it your music taste? Like you like a bit of rock?
Um, I think others where people go really wrong. You know, like they do see me like listening to stuff like that around training. Like I seen Craic'n Coachin during the week there, and it was really good, and was in the mosh pits and all, class crack. And it'll be the same again tomorrow night with Knock Loose. And here, if anyone is in any sort of dad phase, they'll know. They'll know like a tiny bit of caffeine, jump into the mosh pit, have a wee swing about there for an hour or so, you know, bop about to the music. Guarantee next morning they're low on the scales.
Yeah, it's because the expenditure through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. But yeah, like, you know, there is that big like polarizing like that contrast of like me listening to really heavy music, and then like I absolutely love Zach Brown. Like I love country music, I love stuff like that too. I love a wee bit of Paul Nutini. I definitely delve deep into my hip hop and rap as well. So yeah, it just depends on the mood. Like Florence and the Machine, huge fan of Florence and the Machine. Yeah, just.
Nah, I agree with
I
you,
love
mate. You're
his
speaking the
music.
language, especially with Paulo. Been to see him a couple of times. He's one of my favourites of all time, I would say. And no one over here knows who he is. So
Shit, man.
I'm always showing people, and introducing them to Paul Nutini.
Oh, mate. If it, like, I would say it's definitely a top set song for me. Iron Sky.
Good tune with what do you call the rendition in it? Is Charlie Chapman?
Char- yeah, Charlie Chaplin's rendition in it.
Chapman,
Phenomenal.
Chapman.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, so good that. It's a good tune.
But anyway, that was a nice wee conversation anyway to start the podcast, but let's get stuck into the nitty gritty. So we have 10 common questions that me and Emmett tend to get asked quite often, or we see asked quite often whenever it comes to people trying to get lean, especially trying to get lean quickly for summer. And we'll just go one for one here. You know, I'll ask you a question, you ask me a question. We'll give both of our sort of opinions on the subject and see where we land. See if we end up in a wee bit of an argument, or if we're just in agreement that a lot of this stuff is very straight down the line. There is no real argument to be had.
Before you get into it though, mate, the questions themselves, in terms of getting lean for summer, do you think that that's a bottleneck in and of itself? Do you think you have to be there? You know, you have to be getting lean every single time summer comes around. You're gonna get, especially if you're in Ireland, you're getting what, a week or two of sunshine. Or if you're going away on holiday, every time you go on holiday, it has to be a diet. You have to be lean for it. I think that can be a bit of a mistake in and of itself, and that's actually preventing you from building the physique you want, spending time in what actually builds a physique in the growth phase. Maybe the missing point before we even start.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I've done my fair share of bulks. I was 105 kilo in 2020, summer 2022, coming into 2023. And me and Rihanna did a holiday. Went to Malta fat, you know, and I don't regret it one bit, bar the fact that wee Peugeot 106 I rented was in for a hard time getting me up hills.
Yeah, I think like if your goal is big enough in terms of physique development long term, and you can zoom out slightly, then you won't mind having to sacrifice getting lean for a holiday or whatever else. But I mean, I don't think there's any issue in it the odd time as well if you want to just cut back slightly, and tidy up with the body fat, and you feel a bit more comfortable being leaner. I suppose there are both sides of the argument there, but my stance on it would be like you have to spend time in the growth phase first. Like, don't diet every single summer. That is what's going to stop you from building a physique, because you're just going to become a smaller version of yourself without that much muscle.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The more uncomfortable you can get in some of those phases, the better, because you know you're gonna start to really see what you can do in those phases. And I think that a lot of people, like one of our old coaches, Drew, don't know if he listens to this podcast or not, but he called in yesterday and he's sitting at like 96 kilo. I don't think he's ever been that heavy, and like, you know, you can see that yes, he's a bit heavier, he's holding a bit more weight, but I know for a fact that's going to translate into new muscle mass for him, because the body, it doesn't look like it's, you know, out of hand, but it looks like it's going to be a nice dense frame on them.
Yeah. Well, will we get into the questions? Go for the first one here.
Yes, sir. See, before we actually do touch on one final point about the question you just asked there, you know, it isn't a bad thing to be cutting for summer. Also, if you are cutting, like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. We're not saying you shouldn't do that. It's probably best that you do line up your deficits and getting lean for summer, because I can tell you right now, being lean in winter is fucking horrible. Your body will fight you twice as hard. Like, those cold mornings, you know, your body, like, we're not that far away from where we were in terms of an evolutionary standpoint. Like, you will want to get rid of body fat if it is warmer outside. But, like, good luck trying to get fucking skinned in winter. It's disgusting. Like, I've been there, held it, and it does get so much harder.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's exactly why these things exist, I suppose, like summer shreds and winter arcs. They're there for a reason. And you touched on an interesting point, like in terms of evolution, probably before calorie deficits and cavemen wanting to get lean, or maybe they were getting a bit leaner in summer naturally. They were putting on a bit of body fat in winter, um, because of that, the change in temperature. So it's an interesting point.
I'll always argue that point. Like, when we look at it, anything from an evolutionary standpoint, especially with bodybuilding, you know, we're usually doing the fucking complete opposite, and you're fighting against thousands of years of evolution alone just to do what you're doing. Not to make it sound really hardcore and extreme, but it's the truth. It's why it's hard. It's why psychologically most people struggle.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get stuck in. Do you want to go first? Want me to go first? I don't mind.
I'll go first. Why am I not losing weight even though I'm barely eating anything?
I would genuinely put this down to a lack of awareness of what you're actually eating. And then on the other side of that, there sometimes what we can find as well is that people eating less food will expend less because they're less energetic. So it's like under fuel on a car and expecting it to do a round trip. You know, it's not going to get very far. So one is that I think that you should take a look at what you're actually eating and make sure you're in a deficit. Could you also push the expenditure a wee bit more? And would it be worth maybe putting a bit more food in so that you can actually perform at a higher level? Your opinion?
Wouldn't be far, really. Anything you've covered there is basically what I think. I think tracking inaccuracy is so common. Like, there's probably, I think there's a statistic I've seen of it, but it's most people drastically under track how much they actually are consuming on a daily basis. So I think making sure that you're tracking your nutrition is of the absolute utmost importance there. Like, another one can be if they're not tracking their nutrition and they're thinking, I'm eating healthy, why am I not losing weight? You could still, despite eating nutrient-dense foods, find yourself in a calorie surplus. If the energy, like, all we're doing is managing energy balance, and you need to make sure that the calories you're consuming is going to be less than the calories that you're expending, your output. So I think that's probably the first thing. And then the second point you touched upon there is, yeah, if your calorie set point is too low, naturally you're going to move around. You might want to move around a bit less because you're going to have less energy, and your total output is less. So there can be a rationale in adding a bit of food, like you said. And then there can be another standpoint where you may have just been chronically under eating for such a long period of time, to where you actually need to start building those calories up, to put your body in a responsive position. So then when you can actually then enter a deficit with a far higher set point, because if you've just been chronically under eating for years upon years upon years and crash dieting, it can't just be a case of, right, your metabolism isn't in a great spot here. Build food up slowly, and spend time doing that, and that's gonna, okay, initially you mightn't be getting leaner, but in the long run it's gonna prevent this, yo-yo back and forth that you've been continuing doing and spinning your wheels and getting nowhere with it, really.
Yeah, like, where are you supposed to go from rock bottom?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think that's a common one too.
Very, very common.
Yeah.
Question number 2. How long should it take me to actually get lean? Like, realistically.
Could easily just say it depends with this, that couldn't you? Like, context is key here. So what is your starting position? That's going to be the first thing. So how much like body fat is there to come off first and foremost? Usually, if it's your first time dieting or you're new with regards to physique development, then there's probably a bit more than you think to come off. So it's going to take a bit longer. Give yourself a bit more time, is what I would say there. Realistically, in a sustainable manner, like for me, as if I'm looking at a client perspective, someone's coming to me, they need to get leaner. You're giving them a minimum of, for me, 12 weeks, and that's without having to be really aggressive with it. That can be longer depending on where they're at. If they have a lot of weight to lose, you could then break it down into small phases. So you can give them 12 weeks. You can maybe take your foot off the pedal for a while and spend a bit of time at maintenance, and then go into another deficit until you get to a point where you're happy with the body composition. Once you're happy with the body composition, you're at a lean set point. You're responsive to food. You're a bit more insulin sensitive, then you can start pushing food up, and that's where the fun starts.
No, couldn't agree more there. It's something you actually touched on at the start there, but data is everything. You know, the more data we have, the better it's going to go, because of course now I know what weight I am right now, and I also know what weight I get lean at, and I can just assume that if I've had a good off season, I've built a wee bit more muscle, maybe it's up a wee bit higher, but I'll always use that there as the set point. So again, data is everything. Like, what do you actually know about yourself?
100%. So you could, even just to touch on that as well, scale weight and making sure that that's something that you're tracking on a daily basis as well, not once a week, not twice a week, because as we know, when you start doing it and you just view it as data, then it will fluctuate day to day. But we look at trends, we look at the weekly average. If the weekly average is moving in the right direction, then that gives you enough data, then you can continue success over a period of months, or how long your deficit's going to last.
And that's it too, isn't it? It's like hard, with no data and no previous experience, for us as coaches, it's just a case of like becoming really good at guesstimation, and most people just start to follow set rules and have their own set rules as coaches. Like, personally, I look at that 1% loss per week, 1% loss of your starting body weight.
Yeah. And I like
carry that across.
Something I like to do early on is establish where maintenance calories is, because if you find maintenance early, then it allows you to make changes a bit more accurately, rather than shooting in the dark. So if you find them where their maintenance calories is, and that means you have to spend maybe an initial couple of weeks not pushing for fat loss, but then in the long run, it's going to make that process a lot smoother.
Definitely. Well, there was something else you touched on there that it was like, it's a really good point. No, lost it. Doesn't matter. But I think you've hit every single fucking touch point there, and I couldn't answer any better.
No, I would just summarize saying, like, don't set unrealistic expectations. Give yourself a bit longer than you think you need, if it's a first time. You don't need to rush it,
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. The point that you made about breaking up the actual stint of fat loss. If you are someone that's a wee bit heavier and have a lot more to come off, you would be surprised what that does for you from a psychological and hormonal standpoint. Of actually, every 12 weeks, you might actually find that the next 12-week block, or the third 12-week block that you go into fat loss for, you'd probably be on higher calories if you are simultaneously losing fat while doing resistance training and gaining muscle, because you're so sensitive to it that you likely will, like, it will be a shock to the system. But that third stint of fat loss, you're going to be sitting there with a wee bit more calories, probably look a bit better and function a lot better too. It just gets easier the more you do it.
And by that point, you probably have greater diet stamina, and you have likely seen decent amount of progress where your motivation to get stuck in is a lot higher.
Yeah, 100%. Who just asked that? You're back to using it?
I think so. Should I just stop drinking alcohol completely if I want to get lean? Now, to counter this right away, the caveat, I think most people's question is, can I still drink alcohol and get lean?
Honestly, my bottom line was is just no. Like, that's probably where the argument comes in. You know, I could sit and argue for it all day long, but you know, if we run off that 12-week rule and we look at you gonna drinking 3 or 4 times across in 12 weeks, and every time you do, you probably lose 4 days, 3-4 days of progress, because you know, drinking doesn't just end at drinking most of the time for people. It ends up with a kebab at fucking 3 a.m. You know, we are going to have also the side effects of being dehydrated, the possibility of risk of injury being higher, and psychologically, like, cravings are going to be higher. Everything's just going to get harder for the fact that you wanted to go out drinking. And if we're losing that 3 or 4 days across 12 weeks, you know, there's a week lost already, or a week and a half lost. I just don't think it's worth it. I think put the head down, get the work done, and then enjoy it at the other end, instead of trying to find that quote unquote balance. I don't think there is balance. I think what there is extremes, and we get to enjoy the fruits of our labour.
Yeah, I think that's bang on. I think like alcohol is extremely like catabolic. It's when physique development is the goal, it's almost the opposite. It's pulling you in the opposite direction. And for a lot of the reasons you touched on, like you're saying, you're losing 3 or 4 days. That's killing momentum too. So if you're doing that every week, say for example, you're never going to be able to build up a level of momentum. And like we're talking on the previous question, you've got that momentum and you're more motivated. But if you're resetting the clock every single weekend, then you're not building momentum, you're not seeing results. So you're just staying static, you're staying in the same position. So everything you're working hard for during the week is being undone on the weekend, unfortunately. And I think something else to touch on there, it's not just the alcohol itself that's going to prevent you from getting lean. It's not the alcohol itself, it's the impact of the alcohol. So as you touched on, the food afterwards, the decision making, obviously you don't make good decisions when alcohol's in the system. That a lot of the time comes down to food too. Afterwards there's going to be some sort of nutrient void food, but then it's the following days you lose sleep quality because your sleep quality is poor. What happens then? We spoke about it on previous episodes. Your hunger hormones are out of sync, so your cravings are going to be extremely high. Your satiety is going to be low as well. So as you said yourself there, then it means you're fighting an uphill battle and making it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Does that mean you can't drink alcohol and get lean? No, you can. You can do it, but I say both of us would be on the same boat where we're not recommending doing it. And if you are going to do it, make it few and far between. I think one thing we'll probably agree on is, and I say this all the time, everyone's life would be objectively better if they drank alcohol less frequently. And that's not even just talking about physique development. That is across the board. The quality of your life would improve.
I 110% agree. Something I introduced to a lot of my clients, and you know, people probably have their own versions of this here, but I have the traffic light system, very well named. But like a red light event like that, there, a social event, is that you just don't need to go. Do you know, it's like your mate's cousin's wee sister's birthday. Like a lot of people will take every opportunity possible to get on it, and in my opinion, you know, that's where you're going wrong. So red lights are just things you don't need to go to. Why even put yourself through the stress of going to them? Amber's something that you should show up to, an event that you should show up to, but you don't need to drink. You know, you just go, you socialise, you leave early, completely fine. And a green light is go. green light is something that only happens every once in a blue moon. Like I had a client there that had his sister's wedding, you know, and he worked up to that point as well. He didn't just like throw it in the middle of a dad phase. It was actually part of the milestone of being like, we want to be here by your sister's wedding. And you know, those things don't just appear out of the blue. Green lights are like monumental. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to be, oh fuck, I forgot, it was my sister's wedding this weekend, mate. It's like, no, mate, you've known for months. But it could be, you know, anniversaries, it can be a multitude of things, and that's going to be different to everybody on how you view that there. But it's something that I get straight right away to be like, what are your green lights? What are things that you know, you can't not have that experience? Or if you look back at it in the year, you'd be like, fuck me, why was I so strict on my dad and stuff? Like, I actually ruined that whole night.
Yeah, 100%. I really like the traffic light system as well. And then those events that say come up once in the blue moon, and having a few drinks may add to the occasion in terms of socially and stuff like that. You can plan ahead in advance if you know that date's coming up. You can prepare accordingly on the days leading up to it and on the day of as well. If fat loss is a goal, you can make it work by planning ahead and just being a bit more prepared. So, for example, if someone's going out and they're going out on a night out and alcohol's involved, the day of, the plan for me, if it's a client, for example, would be on the day of, encourage them to hit as close to their protein goal as possible before they go out. Because let's be honest, once they go out, and if it's an evening event, hopefully it is, because it allows you to get close to that protein goal, there's going to be no protein consumed. There may be a few chicken goujons at the buffet or something, but we can assume that we're not going to get much protein. So try and hit your protein goal before you go out. In terms of like fats and carbs, maybe keep them to a minimum, so you can just have like protein veg meals throughout the day in the lead up to going out. That way you've got calories banked that are usually going towards your carbs and fats that they're maybe going to go towards alcohol on that evening. And on that one-off occasion, won't make a massive difference as long as you get back on track as soon as possible. Don't let it turn into 2-3 days of killed momentum, of making bad choices, of allowing the lack of recovery and stuff impact your decision making. Just be prepared that it's going to be a bit tougher in the next few days, but once you get through it, and if these occasions aren't happening all the time, then you can make it work.
You know, preparation is a huge one there as well that you're touching on, but just to go to the extreme of it, like you should like take into account that you're going to be dehydrated, etc. You should like hydrate before. You should have everything set up as well in the house for whenever you get home. You know, like have the bottles of water for electrolytes sitting there. Have them even labelled. This is the one that I drink before I go to bed. This is one I drink whenever I get up. You know, go to the other side of it too, of being like, I am going to get home. I am going to be craving food, and being prepared and taking a hit on something that is a wee bit more calorie dense that you've prepared yourself is going to be much better than the free for all that you're going to have whenever you're sitting there in the kebab shop blocked. Go on, you stick extra garlic mayo and cheese on that there for me, please, mister. If you know there's a fucking Ninja Creamy or overnight oats or whatever it is that tickles your fancy sitting there, or even, you know, you've made yourself a fucking burrito. I don't know what it is. At least you know what's went into it. At least you know it's not going to cause any digestive issues, and you're going to be in a position where next morning you are limiting damage control. And that is something I say so often, like, what damage control are we going to have to do after this event?
I don't think anyone's ever woke up the next day and went, thank God I had that kebab at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, mate. Oh, God. I'm so fucking blessed to have Rings thing here.
Yeah, no, I mean, so that is a great point, and having that prepared in advance when you can't fight like physiology that way. You can't fight the cravings that are going to occur, but if you have something prepared at home that is a bit tastier, it might be off your normal plan, it's going to be a hell of a lot better than the alternative. But that's one meal I could speak about. I could speak about that one for days.
Imagine you getting into the house here after, I know we don't drink anymore, like, but after a pretty heavy one, and there's just a Ninja Creamy sitting there. Like, you'd be in that third person perspective of loving yourself, being like, thank fuck Emmett did this earlier on.
Yeah, and you know what? I do it on the occasion of not when alcohol's involved, but if a meal out is involved, for example. Um, I actually like to have the Ninja Creamy before I go out, like in close proximity, just for that bit of protein. It's going to keep me a bit fuller, and it just means like I'll still enjoy the meal when I'm out, but it means I'm not going to overeat. I'm less likely to overeat anyway, you know. So there's a bit of strategy that goes into it too.
I think that people take those. I know we're really delving deep into this one, like only on number 3, but people really don't understand the idea of those events either. That they're something that you're going to, enjoy for years to come in terms of a memory. It's not a free for all. It's not a binge. Like you're talking there, like even those meals that you go out for a living, there's a reason behind them, and on top of that, it's usually from an emotional aspect of actually spending time together. People have the wrong idea altogether, in my opinion. It's probably why a lot of things in your life might be just not going the way they should be. Like me and Rihanna have a close intimate dinner because we need to spend time together, not because I'm a fat cunt and need to devour 4,000 calories here.
Yeah, think about the experience, like at the forefront rather than the food or the drinks and stuff like that. Yeah, and just not being reckless, being able to exercise a bit of self-control. Of course, like all these things, when you drive it back to the question, is made a lot more difficult when alcohol's involved.
Mm-hmm. Big time. Okay, sir. Number 4. I've been in a deficit for 8 weeks and progress is completely stalled. What now?
Stick with it. Be patient. In what aspect has your progress stalled? In terms of maybe the scales moving? I would.
Let's
give
go with
it.
the scales because I think that's the most common.
Yeah. Let's say scales have stalled after a week. Okay, well maybe we're now at a point where we were in a deficit, but we're no longer in a deficit because as the longer we go into deficit, the more body fat we lose. Our maintenance set point changes. We then will eventually need less calories, to continue on the deficit. So maybe it's a case where you just need to eat a bit less food. On the other end of that, maybe could you do a bit more expenditure, and increase that deficit. And then a bit of a hidden one that maybe isn't spoken about enough is how are you applying yourself to your training, to your steps, to your cardio? Are you maximising the amount of effort you're spending, or are you just ticking a box? And then that way, like if you're maximising training, you're maximising the amount of effort you're putting into your cardio, your expenditure is probably going to be a bit higher. So make sure like it's very easy as you get further into a deficit to take your foot off the gas a bit, especially when it comes to cardio. And you actually need to work harder to burn the same amount of calories because you're getting fitter as the deficit goes on. But the crux of it for me would be patient. Like 1 week of stall fat loss isn't the end of the world. It's a marathon, not a sprint. If you're in it for the long haul, like say it's 12 weeks, it's 16 weeks, just zoom out a little bit. And if you're ticking the boxes and doing what you can, putting applying maximal effort, and nothing is changing, then it is just a case of you're no longer in a deficit and something, either output or intake needs to change slightly.
Nothing to add to that. I think that's such a common issue as well, is that people are like, I've stalled. It's like, have you actually looked at your data point? I mean, Rihanna Callahan is the fucking worst for us here. She'll literally go 4 weeks on the bounce, dropping weight, and then it'll be like 3 days of stall, and she'll be like, I don't know what's happened. This isn't working. And like, of course, like she's a coach and she doesn't talk like that there. But like, yeah, she'll come to me and be like, yeah, it's stalled. Not really feeling good this week, and like that all, like the domino effect of that is shit. You feel like, fuck, I have no motivation this week. Like things aren't going the way I want to. But it is a case of just, I always like the idea of, and I mean physically, just sticking the hood up and getting to work. It's just how it is, being like, well, I need to give my body a reason to lose fat.
I think another point that I thought of when you were explaining that too is it's why data is so important, because you may think you've stalled, but in actual reality, the average is still moving down. So say like it's fluctuating slightly, but on average, your body weight is 0.3, 0.4 below what it was the previous week. Well, you haven't actually stalled because we're looking at the weekly average. We're not looking day to day. So again, patience is key there.
Yeah, 100%. I have nothing else to add to that. That's good.
Next question, mate, would be: I keep losing motivation halfway through a cut. How do you stay disciplined?
How do you stay disciplined? I think this is the one I didn't want, to be honest.
Why am I losing motivation? Do you know? Why am I losing motivation halfway through a cut?
Yeah, like, there's so many ways we could attack this here, and I just don't want to attack it the wrong way, you know, because I don't want to be the guy that just turns around and be like, just suck it up, buttercup, and keep moving, like, you'll be fine. But that's sort of it too. You know, if we're halfway through a cut, let's say it is 12 weeks, is 6 weeks enough to see a ridiculous amount of change? And, you know, the realistic thing with a cut is that you're only really going to see the massive and drastic changes come the back end of your cut whenever you actually are that bit leaner. And maybe it is only in the last 3 weeks you start to get the benefit of like seeing those weekly detailed changes. You might be in what we like to call the fat and flat stage, where your muscle is empty of carbohydrates and glycogen, which means that there's no real sensation of a pump or any sort of tight pushing against the skin. With that as well, with any fat left, you just look a lot softer, and it's not a nice look at all. But if you've been through a diet phase before, everyone knows that this position is the position you want to be in, because then your body has no other choice but to eat into the fuel source of body fat. So are we losing motivation from a standpoint of looking in the mirror and going, I don't look great? Or is it a case that, you know, you didn't actually want it enough in the first place? You like the idea of losing fat, of being shredded, more than you actually realise it is beneficial to you as a caveat of health, of like, you know, maybe you just it hasn't gotten shit enough for you yet, to be honest. Maybe you just haven't got that point where you're like, fuck me, I really just need to make a change here. And that's usually the motivation that's going to carry you through. Like, you have to understand that another big one, and we take this here from Atomic Habits, is that the journey is so much better than the destination. We're always going to be looking at that journey, and if we're not enjoying the journey, then that's why you're losing motivation, because, you know, you're looking forward to the reward more than you are the process of getting better.
All fantastic points there. Like that first one where you're almost at that muscle hypertrophy purgatory, where you're not yet that lean, and you're just looking a bit smaller. It's just a case then of pushing through. Like, it will come then. You just have to keep going with it. And as Donald says, you can reflect back at the end, and you'll not really notice or realize how far you've come until it's all said and done. And then the second point, like, so important, is your why just might not be strong enough. So what is your motivation in the first place to losing weight? You know, you need to have a strong reason behind it. Otherwise, when it does start to get tough at that halfway point, you know, what's halfway through, 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in, then what's driving you to keep going? If it's not strong enough, then you probably will stop.
Yeah, huge part of it. You know, people talk about it all the time. Like, discipline is so much more important than motivation. You just need to keep doing what you're doing, and you will receive the reward for it. But
yeah,
it's also just enjoying the shit parts of it. Like, I remember so many times just busting out laughing at how terrible some days that we're on prep.
Yeah, I think
it's like psychotic doing it, but I was like, fuck me, I'm actually doing this to myself. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, as well, about the journey and like being present and focusing on that. It ties back to focusing on, like, being present in the position you're in, rather than maybe because you're thinking too far ahead, or you're thinking about the outcome, and your goals outcome driven. Like, if it's process driven, if you're building better habits, if you're becoming a better person and you're changing your identity in the process, then that's the win. Like, the wins are already taking place. Celebrate the wins as they come, not just the outcome at the end when you're a bit leaner, you know.
I think that another common occurrence is the education behind what is actually happening right now. And I think this is something that you've probably run into before, and you don't even notice it because you're like, as a coach, we just have a coach's brain of being like, everyone should know X, but they don't. Fat loss phases are not forever. Like, I need to scream out there to you. Like, they're not forever. You're not going to do this here for the rest of your life. Like, this isn't what your lifestyle is about to be. You're just in a wee stint of fat loss, and it's going to get better.
You know what? That is like, that's number one point. Like, so glad you mentioned that, because that is oftentimes the reason why a lot of people can never ever get into a position where they're happy and comfortable in their body, because they think this fat loss journey is their entire life then, and the one slip up, or it gets too difficult. It's like, fuck, I can't live like this. It's like, it's a phase. It's not supposed to be forever. So you almost do have to embrace it and understand it's a short-term process. Otherwise, you're going to be this person that for years upon years, like, oh, I'm starting this diet next week. It's like, sure, you started one the other week. What are you talking about? You know, but like, it's frustrating for you. You don't want to be in that position. So just realize that fat loss phases aren't forever. And once you get lean properly you'll never have you, but don't get me wrong, you'll have to there will be points where you want to get lean again, but if you do fat loss correct the first time round, then it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier for any other time you need to do it.
Yeah, like my first ever real cut was horrible. I mean, terrible. I did a photo shoot in a very popular gym in Belfast at the age of, was I 19? And I remember doing 8 weeks of asparagus and fish and broccoli and chicken, and I think I had one meal of carbs, which was 4 rice cakes. And I did that there for 8 weeks, and I felt like dog shit. I also worked in Boojum at the same time too, which was very difficult. Very difficult. I
mean, that's like making it way tougher than it has to be though. And like, from that lesson, it's probably a big part of your coaching as well, where you don't want anyone to think that they have to do that in order to achieve weight loss. It doesn't have to be like that, you know.
But it's only up from there, you know. They couldn't have got any worse.
No.
Like the next day, I was like, oh my god, what's this guy
amazing.
doing?
Yeah, I can actually eat some food and enjoy some carbs and actually feel like I'm a real person.
I think it was the first time I'd ever been given cereal on a diet, and I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, just 100 grams of Cocoa Pops. I was like, what? Like, you're allowed to do this?
You know, that's another thing too, I suppose, like people thinking that it has to be only clean foods that they're eating and have to cut out all their favourite foods and make themselves as miserable as possible. Like, you don't have to do that, you know. And if you do that, it's why you can't stick to it. So yes, we need to be aggressive at certain points, but it has to be something that you can sustain for an extended period of time that's going to actually get you to the goal. Right, we will move on, mate, to the next point.
Yeah, we haven't got long today because I've got to get somewhere. But number 6, how do you stop obsessing over the scales during a cut?
Probably touched on this slightly already, but understand that scale and your scale weight, your body weight, is just data. And if we gather that data every day, the more data we gather, the more accurate it's going to be, the more the more accurate changes we can make. So get used to track, to weighing yourself on a daily basis. I think when it's something you only do once in a blue moon, it becomes a big occasion. So just get used to doing it every day as a non-negotiable, and it will become just a normal part of your process. I think that's the main thing there. And understand that it's not just scale weight that is going to dictate what you're doing. Like, you're not just becoming a smaller version of yourself and losing weight. You want to maintain your muscle mass. You want to also look better, like visually, you know. So if you're looking better, if your measurements are getting smaller, but the scales aren't moving, then you're still making progress. If your training performance is being held to a good standard, that's a good thing as well. So like it's only one metric on a broader scale.
Big time. Remember this too, like the scales aren't your friend. You know, they don't owe you anything, and they're probably one of the most realistic ways that we can take measurement of how you're doing. But it is across a time frame. It isn't a day-to-day thing.
It reminds me of what my boxing coach used to tell me: the scales never lie.
Scales never lie. It's very true.
You had a bit of X-ray last night. The scales never lie. It's like, you're right, they don't. But yeah, just like normalize weighing yourself. I think people like shy away from it, close their eyes and hope for the best. It's like it's not a big deal. And the more data we have, then the more we're going to be able to actually use it to help you, guide you through that process.
It's actually a really big point that I haven't really thought of before. But you know, the scales don't lie, and I think as coaches these days, we're so much more like, you want to find this how do I say this here? If a client was to come to you with distress about the scales not moving, the first thing you would do is try and reason with them and explain to them that, like, you know, you could be holding more information, it could be this, that, and the other. Like, I don't think a lot of coaches just go straight in the barrel anymore and be like, you know, but looking at the data points, what did you do wrong?
Yeah. But
you
what
know,
you
it
said
isn't the
there,
information, it isn't you're holding water, it isn't all these other things, it isn't the poor sleep, it's that, you know, you've just fucking eaten off plan.
yeah, but also I think that's a good point to counter that. What you've mentioned that we probably didn't get into, like inflammation, the amount of things that can cause your body weight to fluctuate, stress, poor night's sleep, a bit more sodium than normal. There may be some bowel movements that have to take place. You know, there's loads and loads of things at play, and that's why I think just normalising it, weighing yourself on a daily basis, because you are going to get these fluctuations, but that accounts for it. And the more data you have, the more of an accurate reflection we can get over the week as a whole.
Yeah. For men, you probably are looking at week to week fluctuations, and that'll likely be due to like your training days and stuff like that. There, for women, you know, you are going to have that, plus, you know, your monthly fluctuation as well, which is again another big thing to handle. Hormones spiking, you know, dropping off, certain things happening. It's just it's fucking, as a woman, it must be so much more difficult. And from coaching women as well, like, I know that it is way more difficult to deal with those psychological side effects of it. So, like, you know, we're not shitting on you. Like, we understand that these things happen.
Do you know what? Just a point to add that as well for females. I think it's why it can be important to compare like by like on a like by like week basis as opposed to week as well, in terms of what phase of your cycle you're on that given week, compared to, like, so in 4 weeks time, say you're on your luteal phase and your luteal phase comes in another 4 weeks, comparing that against the previous 4 weeks and seeing the difference there, because in each phase of your cycle you're going to be holding on, retain a bit more water. So I think that's to get an accurate picture. Using that form of measuring things as well can be pretty helpful, and mentally as well it can help, because you may find over 4 weeks in terms of luteal phase, yes, my weight spiked up compared to last week, but compared to the last luteal phase it's down a kilo, for example.
Smashing point, to be fair.
Next question. I can get lean, but I always look flat and small. What am I doing wrong? I think you answered this.
You're doing everything right. That's exactly what it is. Like, it is just going to be, if we really dive into the reason behind this here, it's a social media thing, isn't it? You know, people are always looking fucking jacked, pumped up, vascular, loving life here. And I am also fond of this. I am fond of the guy taking the picture after a good pump. You know, I look fucking class. Things I don't post too often. You know, my check-in photos on a Sunday morning look like shit. True. I don't like them.
I'm not saying you look like shit, by the way, and I'm not agreeing with that, but I'm agreeing with the natural lighting, the unpumped, unfiltered, not in a posing room. I suppose that's when you see what your physique actually looks like.
Not after a high day, fucking, you know, like all these things. all these things.
Yeah.
That's
But
where, and
that keeps you honest too, doesn't it?
yeah,
Because some people have never seen themselves in that manner. Like they've actually never taken a picture of themselves, full body, head to toe, in natural lighting in the morning, fasted, ever. They've only maybe ever taken them in the posing room or after a pump. So I think it's important because they actually assess what you look like, in that fasted state too.
yeah, big time, 110%. And you know, you gotta understand that people understand the physiological aspect of things way better than they even understand themselves. You know, they understand that like getting a bit more food in, getting a bit more salt in, a bit more water in is actually gonna make them look a certain way, and that's what you're looking for. It's looking for like, you know, post exercise is the perfect time. You know, you've had a meal there, it's probably had carbohydrates to fuel you, you've had a bit of salt in there, you've had a good amount of water getting into the system, the blood's flowing. Like, what else could you ask for? And then you go find some nasty downlighting, phenomenal looking. But yeah, that's a big part. You know, we already answered that there. You're gonna be fat and flat for a while, and that's completely fine. And you're gonna feel small, especially as a natural athlete. It's so normal. It's so normal. But it is a necessary evil, and that's all we have to say about that one, really, isn't it?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. The next point's probably a question for you, mate. But with a bit more experience with this,
Yeah.
I can't answer it, but the biggest mistake you see first time competitors make in prep.
Yeah. Fuck. There's so many. There is so many, but my one is, you know, it's what you're actually planning to do afterwards, and it was a mistake I made too. You know, there wasn't a clear goal set of being like, this is what I need to do and this is why I'm doing it. Maybe just not enough education or enough like fucking stress put on that. There is that prep doesn't end whenever, you know, you do your final show, and there needs to be some sort of game plan there that is going to work for you mentally. It can't just be, you know, you're going to finish your show, you're going to go eat food off plan, and then you've got to go back onto that diet that you're previously on for a bit more calories. Like, you're already psychologically not there. So I think making the plan prior to actually going on prep is the best case scenario, especially you knowing you, because I don't know you well enough. Like, be honest, be like, how are you going to be actually approach this? Like, if I actually have that conversation now and look back on it, I'm like, okay, well, I probably should have given myself something like that would have cured the cravings. I should have given myself a wee bit more food. I should have put a nice wee set of rules in place to be like, you can only have this once a week, etc., etc. Loads of different things there, and also a bit of communication with the other half of being like, of course, I didn't know getting into prep how I was going to be post prep, but from an emotional standpoint, but it's something I'll definitely tell my clients going forward is that, you know, you're gonna feel like you're doing things wrong, no matter how right you're doing them. Because you're going to be like, fuck, I shouldn't have that off plan. But, you know, maybe that thing you had off plan was actually the wee catalyst that meant you didn't go binge. So you've just got to keep balancing these things. And there's going to be some frustration too, because there's going to be days where you actually have to catch yourself on. But there's also going to be other days where you need to be a wee bit more kind to yourself too, and understand that, you know, you're only human, and that if bodybuilding isn't your fucking career going forward, then that's completely fine. You know, it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to learn from them, and you'll do it better next time. It shouldn't be perfect. Like, prep isn't perfect.
Yeah, like that's a really important. That's a really good point about. I think not just from a prep setting, but in any diet setting, I can't stress enough too that it really the hard work starts doesn't end when the diet's over. It kind of starts there, because yes, we can get a bit more food. We're almost seeing like this magical world where we have more food, the light at the end of the tunnel, but hunger is still going to be extremely high. So you're almost getting a little taste, but you still have to work hard to control yourself, and not go overboard. Like, I think your cravings will be a bit higher because you get a little taste of the good stuff. I've experienced that in diets before. And I always like stress it enough that we just need to keep the food on the gas a little bit after the diet, and still dig the heels in, because it's like you will find it's going to be a bit of a struggle after that. I think in regards to like a prep first time, I think that so it's just something from my own perspective that I'm making sure not to do is to set like unrealistic expectations going into it. Like if you've never competed before, and maybe you're just like, I'm gonna win or whatever. You can't control the outcome of it. You can only control the variables that are within your own control. I think that's something that is probably a lot of people maybe going with unrealistic expectations, or expectations that maybe it's going to be a bit easier than it is, because you can be under no illusions. It's extremely tough. You're taking yourself to absolute extremes, so you better hope that your reason for doing it is strong enough that you're going to be able to withstand that. Because if not, that's when you see people come out the back of it being like, bodybuilding ruined my life, blah blah blah. It's like bodybuilding didn't ruin your life. It just revealed the cracks in the armor. It just maybe the it's just the stability wasn't there, and you weren't ready for taking yourself to those sort of extremes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Too many people have the wrong why, isn't it? It's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, maybe they're doing it for Instagram, or yeah.
It's all for what do you always say? It's all in something physique development. It's all for the love of it, really.
Yeah, love the game. I mean, yeah, that should be what's driving you. And if you enjoy that, then like all the difficulties along the way, you maybe embrace it a bit more. But we'll get into the next one. Next question.
That question probably carries in this here is like, how do you manage that hunger and food noise during the final weeks of prep? You don't.
Yeah. Again, speaking about unrealistic expectations, understand that that's going to be there, and just dig your heels in. You're nearly there. If you're 2 weeks left, you know what I mean. The end is in sight. Likely, if you've done it right, you can maybe feed in to the show a bit more. So like all the hard work at that stage is nearly done. So like if you've got that far, just keep going.
Yeah. I think what you said there, the unrealistic expectation that you're not, like, too many people go out of their way to not be hungry, to find an answer, to put the solution. It's like, do you think if, like, how long have people been bodybuilding now? Do you think if there was a way, people would have already fucking found the answer? Like, the hard part of the sport's that. It's like getting into a fight and not wanting to get punched in the face. It's like, you're getting to get punched in the face.
Yeah, I think that's where the likes of having all these diet hacks can backfire in the end, where you're trying to mask hunger. Just embrace hunger. Embrace that. Again, as you said, it's working. My fat loss is working here. I'm very hungry. Then like, happy days. I'm getting more fat loss here. I'm improving my condition and getting closer to where I want to get to. If you're not hungry, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, close enough proximity to a prep, I would worry, because like, what are you doing? You maybe haven't pushed yourself to where you need to push yourself to. If especially like first time doing it, I'm talking about like from how I'm going to be approaching it, knowing that there's going to be a level of difficulty. Of course, as you said, the more diets you go through, the easier it gets. The more preps you go through, I'm sure the more accustomed to it you can get, and the more you can manage the food noise and find ways of dealing with it accordingly. But it's always going to be tough your first time doing anything.
Yeah, 110%. And it isn't the case that it gets easier. It's just that you understand what they expect, and the expectation probably, especially with this is the bodybuilding PTSD, especially with how much it sucked. Your brain's always going to remember it as way worse than it was. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, it's probably like a couple of shit days, really. And you've just blown it out of proportion.
Yeah.
Emmett, is it possible to stay lean year round? I'll not even say as a bodybuilder, just in general. Is it realistic? It's our last question, folks, and then I have to bounce.
If physique development is your goal, then no, you should have an expectation that there are going to be periods of time where you're not as lean as you were at the end of that. You're not trying to maintain when the goal is physique development. You're not trying to stay lean. You're trying to put yourself in a position where you're building muscle tissue. That's going to require a calorie surplus. A calorie surplus is going to mean that you are going to have to accept putting on some body fat. That is going to be conducive to you building muscle. And changing your physique. That is where the changes happen in the improvement phase, where you're not looking quote unquote your best, but you need to do that and put yourself through that in order to actually look different and change year to year. Because if you're just trying to stay lean, then you're never going to be giving yourself enough food to be putting yourself in the position where you're able to push your performance in the gym to, make enough progress essentially that's going to change your physique. Like, that process is going to be a lot easier by having more food on board, more food, being a calorie surplus. Don't be trying to gain your way through it, or say that you can still build muscle in a deficit. You might be able to, but is it not going to be a lot easier to do so when you have more food, more energy, more fuel that's facilitating that training performance? At the end of the day, when you're looking to change your physique, what you're looking for is training performance going up. And what we need for training performance to go up is adequate food and adequate recovery. And like, again, recovery being your sleep, but your food and your fuel is aiding in that recovery as well.
Like, natural physique development is already slow enough. Never mind you slowing it down anymore.
100%. Maybe like if you have done enough gaining phases, spent a long time in a surplus building muscle, and you've done that year after year, and you've spent time pushing the levels where you're a bit uncomfortable, then there will become a point where you can eat higher food, and you can, because you hold more muscle mass, you can stay leaner. But that's going to take a long time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Like, I remember the first time I hit into 90 kilos. Like, I was nowhere near lean, and I walk around in 90 kilos with still having visible abs. Like, you do get those benefits of being leaner, but at the same time, if you're just someone that's happy with their physique where it is right now, yeah, fucking stay lean all year round, far away. But you're going to have a lot of issues on the back end of that there that are going to be very hard to deal with. A lot of them are going to be psychological. Some of them are going to be hormonal. And the big one there as well is like the natural thing that anybody wants to do is progress. So when it comes to the weight room or whatever the sport is, you're not going to progress. You're not going to get any better at it. Realistically, yeah. You're lowering the ceiling.
At the end of the day, that question, staying lean year round, requires staying the same. Can I stay the same? Well, do you want to stay the same? Fair play, fair enough. Or do you want to actually make progress? If progress is the goal, then there are periods of time where you're pushing things. You're getting heavier. You're not lean. You're not beach ready, and that's going to serve you better in the long run. So it's about zooming out a little bit.
Yeah, big time. That is all I have time for today, sir. But I think we banged through them, and hopefully we give people some good value there.
I think we did, mate. I'm pretty confident in saying if you listen to a shorter episode, just over an hour, you can take something from that in terms of how to execute a diet phase, expectations going into it, and even just the long-term scope of physique development, and that it requires, extremes on both ends. But yeah, I think that's a good question to end on, mate.
Perfect, Emmett. Have a great night, mate. I'm going to go have a great day. And to the folks listening, hopefully, you're gonna get lean, bring in some nice shreds, but also realize that, it's not forever, and there's going to be some nice barriers to move around on the way there. Remember, the process is the good part. Slán go fóill. Let's not go for it, Emmett. See you, bud.